Hi guys, hope you all had a nice weekend. Uh, Hopefully you enjoyed experimenting with your materials, whether they're just things you found around the house or maybe you were lucky enough to have your packet already. Uh, I finally got my paper in the mail, so I just wanted to show you what that looks like for those of you that are still waiting. We have two pads of paper. We've got this big pad of newsprint, and like I said, it's basically just newspaper without print on it. So this stuff's cheap. There's 50 sheets in here. Should be plenty to get you through the semester, and we're going to do most of our just kind of quick exercise stuff on there. Any kind of longer drawings that we do will be on this pad of Strathmore drawing paper. Basically, you can see that down here it says 80 pounds, and what that means is it's just the thickness of the paper. So I don't know exactly how they come up with those numbers, but you know, like I've been doing some watercolor painting since I've been home, and I use 140 pounds. It's a much thicker paper. This is plenty for drawing. It's nice and smooth, and then so it's probably, I'm guessing, a hot press type of paper, which means that it's smoother. You get less sheets. There's 24 sheets in here. The thicker the paper you go, the less sheets they'll include. But you know, this is just perfect for what we need for drawing. You know, if you decide you really like using ink and washes and using water-based materials a lot, you probably want to step it up to a heavier duty paper. But as far as our purposes, this is going to be great. So I just wanted to show you that now that I finally have that and wasn't able to include that in the previous video. So last week we really just kind of took a look at our materials and spent some time, you know, getting to know them. And it was pretty non-traditional, and ultimately we are a more traditional drawing class, right? So we're going to start with basics and fundamentals and work our way up. The way that the class is scaffolded, it all is going to happen in a certain kind of order that will lead to a place where we have more freedom to kind of draw what we want in the style we want. So for those of you that have a lot of experience drawing, still following these steps is important, and there's a lot to learn from it. So, you know, one thing I forgot to mention in our previous videos is through the course of the semester, I'll probably ask you to do things in certain exercises where you're like, what's the point of this? I don't understand it. Why can't I do it this way or that way? And like I said, there's a reason for it. This course is scaffolded in a way that following those directions is going to benefit you the most, and you'll be able to understand as we get to the following steps why we did that initially. So we're going to start today with an exercise that's similar to that, and we'll get into that in a second. But basically the class is going to start with us working to build hand-eye coordination. That's really what it is. That's such a huge part of drawing. Being able to see what you're looking at and transfer it to the page. Sounds really simple, right? It's like the most simple way of putting it. It's a major oversimplification, obviously, as any of you know that have spent any time drawing. If it was that easy, we'd all be master drawers and we wouldn't need this class. So it's obviously a lot more complicated than that, because it's not about the way you want it to look or you know, just ultimately it's about making that accurate translation between what you're seeing and what is on your page. And that's about really looking and having the tools to break down what it is you're seeing, measure, check things, use different types of marks that we're going to talk about. How light or dark is something? Where's the light coming from? Really complicated. So rather than just throw all that info at you at once, we're going to start with line. So we're going to start with contour line. And basically what contour line is just a French word that means outline. So we're going to be focusing on the outlines of objects. Another way to think about that are the edges. So anywhere there's an edge to an object, that's what we're going to be focusing on for this entire first week. So once again, I'm grading on your ability to follow instructions. So we're not going to be doing any shading, no value, none of that going on this week. And if you include that in your drawings, it's actually going to have a negative effect on your grade. Next week, we're going to get into value and shading and additive and subtractive drawing and all that. But we'll do so much of that to the point that you'll probably wish we could just go back and simplify. So this week, just try to focus on the line. We'll get into all of it. I'm going to break it down exercise by exercise. And then for Thursday morning's class, I'm going to introduce what we'll be doing that day. We'll talk a little bit more about actually measurement and proportion. And then you'll have your first project. Outside of exercise, it'll be your first actual project. So I wanted to show you something. I've attached a vocab sheet that's going to be really important to the class in general. It's attached in the files section of your Canvas, so you'll be able to find it there. It's called vocab. And so real quick, I'm going to share the screen here so we can take a look at it together. So here we are. So you can see that this is basically, if you've taken a design class with me, it's the exact same vocab sheet, because a lot of this stuff, it's all just about composition. What makes a good image or effective composition? Composition is basically just a fancy word for how you lay things out on the page. How is it composed? How is it put together? So the first one, the first element of our kind of different elements of design and composition is line. Line is a path, a moving point, or the distance between A and B is an easy way to think about that. We don't have to cover this whole thing. You can read through this. Different types of line. One of the things I think is really important about here is just looking at these adjectives used to describe line. So there's a lot of different descriptive words in here: blurred, broken, controlled, gestural, hatching, mechanical, curved. And the thing I love about all these adjectives is, to me, they're all really visual. So I can read these and I can kind of picture what they could look like in my mind. If there's a couple dozen words here, there's probably hundreds of thousands more you can add here that could describe different types of line. This isn't a limited list. I mean, this could go on forever. You can add to it if you want. But just to show you that even though we're simplifying things all the way down, we're finding it just to focus on line this week. It's such an important part of drawing, and that variety in those kind of lines and mark making is going to add more information to your image. That's going to help it look and be more representational to what you're drawing. So like I was saying, a lot of, drawing is this hand-eye coordination thing. We're talking about translating what you're seeing to the page. And so some of these exercises that we start with are going to help you with that. And these are practice. So remember, most of what we do in class, you don't need to worry about. Don't judge, is it good or is it bad? I'm going to do an example for you. And then you'll be able to kind of see what I'm talking about. I'm going to see if I can get rid of this share here. Stop share. Okay, we're back. So it's like the same concept as if someone throws a ball at you, the more you've practiced, like if it's way overhead, you just know where to put your hand up to grab that ball if you're practicing a lot. If you don't have as much practice, you might miss it, but it becomes this kind of muscle memory thing. Like if someone throws it at your face, you're going to know to put your hand in your face and you move, because it's like basic instinctual, don't get hit in the face with this ball type of thing. But it's like any kind of thing you practice, it becomes to some degree muscle memory related. So being able to translate what you're seeing to what your hand is doing is another version of this, and that is kind of the fundamentals of drawing. So we know that contour refers to line, and so we're going to address a couple different versions of contour exercises. We're going to do a blind continuous contour drawing, or blind and or continuous. So what a blind contour drawing is it means that you're basically not looking at your drawing at all. You're drawing and only looking at what it is you're drawing and not your page at all. That is helpful for this hand-eye coordination thing, because your hand should trust your eyes and vice versa, and your eyes should trust your hand to do what it's seeing. And if in observational drawing and trying to draw something representational, if you're not really looking, spending enough time observing and looking, you might draw an apple and it might look like an apple, but does it look like the apple that's in front of you that you're trying to draw? That's the whole point of where we're starting this course, like really trying to accurately render what it is you're looking at. So, you doing these exercises and just drawing at all is going to help that kind of communication between the eye and the hand. So blind drawing is an exercise where you're drawing and you're not looking at your drawing at all until the very end. A continuous contour drawing is when the second you put your pencil down or your charcoal, it stays down and you're not picking it up and moving it around. So you're just kind of keeping that material down and drawing. If it's just continuous, you can be looking at it. If it's a blind continuous contour drawing, which is where you're going to start, not only are you not looking at the paper, but as soon as your pencil goes down, you just keep on drawing and not lifting that material. So I'm going to set up a little bit of a timer here. And the first thing that we're going to do, if you've got someone at home that you can do this with, by all means, ask a family member or roommate to sit for you for a few minutes. It's just going to be a 5-minute warm-up. We're going to start most of our days with these like quick warm-ups to get the kind of blood flowing and fingers loose, however you want to put it. So let's see. I'm just going to set you can get a stopwatch yourself or just use your phone. I'm just going to set these to actually, we'll just do 1-minute drawings. So got 1 minute set to my phone. And if you have your newsprint, use your newsprint. If you don't, just grab a piece of paper. If you don't have someone at home that you can draw, just grab a mirror or draw yourself. I'm recording this video for you and looking at myself. So for better or for worse, I'm just going to use my own, what I'm looking at here to do this drawing. So I got my newsprint down. You can see that here. And for our purposes, if you have your charcoal, I'd like us for these first couple of weeks to be primarily using our charcoal for these in-class exercises, demo-related exercises. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw myself. I'm going to draw my face. 1-minute drawings, blind continuous contour for the first 2. So I'm just going to show you this once. You're going to do this 3 times. Once again, this is all going to be listed out in your page on the project outline assignment for the day. So I'm going to grab a piece of this charcoal. One tip for you guys, which we'll talk more about. You'll see this in a lot of the videos I post, not just videos of me, but I've been finding other demos of videos of other people that when people are drawing, a lot of times they're just holding their material like this. When we write or when we eat, we're holding our material like so, or our fork or our pencil. But that's really limiting, because what that forces you to do is just kind of draw from your fingertips. When we're drawing, we want to be able to use our whole arm. Like at minimum, we're working from the elbow, if not from the whole shoulder. So being able to hold it like this loosens you up to move bigger and doesn't restrict you. For instance, I'll show you here, like if I'm trying to draw a straight line just from my fingertips, I'm limited by this amount of movement, right? So I can go here. Let me pull this back a little bit further so you can see. But then I have to move my hand and go further, 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 further. If I'm holding my material like so, and I go straight from my shoulder, I can just draw a line right across, and it's a lot more even and straight than that one there. So practice holding your material between your 2 fingers like so, and drawing more from your entire arm. So I'm going to hit start on this, and I'm just going to, I'm looking at my face in this computer, even though I'm talking to you guys, and I'm just going to choose somewhere to start with and start drawing. Remember, it's blind, so I'm not looking down at all, and it's continuous. So wherever I start, I'm following that around. So if I start at an eyeball and then I need to go back to the other eyeball, I need to trace back around and just feel my way around. It's one way to think about this. If you're drawing someone else, this might sound kind of strange, but if you're drawing yourself, it's not as weird. But think about, imagine that your finger, when whatever you're looking at, since you're not looking at your page at all, you can imagine that your fingers the end of that charcoal or pencil, are moving around the contours. So if I'm starting here, I can imagine that my finger is actually touching and moving around my face, and that will help with this process. You know, I'm not sitting there with you. I can't tell you not to look. That's the biggest temptation in this. You're going to want to look down, but don't worry about it. Like I said, none of these are going to look good. I'll show you my example and you'll see it's not going to be a good drawing, but this is practice of building that hand-eye coordination. So if we were in class, I go, hey, dude, stop looking at your page, or don't look. And even then people will still get tempted to look. Like I said, the better you can follow these instructions, the better you're going to get at drawing throughout the semester. So just try not to look. It's not that hard. 2 minutes of drawing, you cannot look at it. So the other thing to think about is like, where are you going to start? Are you going to start on the inside of the face and work your way out? Or are you going to start on the outside of the face and work your way in? If you feel like you're done after 30 seconds and you got 30 more seconds to go, just keep going. Like add in the shoulders and neck and whatever else you got going on. Because if you're finishing drawings in 30 seconds, they're probably not very great drawings. So, you know, most drawings are going to take you hours and hours. So you can keep working it. So I'm going to hit my timer. As soon as I do it, I'm going to start. I think I'm going to try to start from one of the eyes. So here we go. I'm looking ahead the whole time. An eye, nose, keeping that material down. Another eye. Eyebrow, back down, come down the lips, and maybe all side of the face, do like a hat, ear, neck. Got 15 seconds left, so I'm just going to keep going, trying to add more and more. Remember that material staying down and you're not peeking. I know it's tempting, but just keep drawing, keep adding. So that's it. And then I'll show you what this looks like. I guarantee you they're all going to be hilarious. So check it out. It's me. Pretty fantastic, huh? So, I mean, the only reason that my drawing looks even remotely like a face at all is because I've spent the last 30 plus years of my life drawing. So you might find that like an eyeball's floating over here in space, your nose, it's all just this jumble, looks like some Picasso painting or something. That's okay. I guarantee you, the more you practice this kind of stuff, the better you'll get at it. So I want you to do 2 of these exercises, blind, continuous. And then for the final one, it'll be a blind drawing. There'll be a third drawing that you do. Each one's a minute. Once again, this is in your assignment info. But the third one you do will be a blind drawing, but it's not continuous. So you can lift up your material and move it around. I find that harder because when you're not looking at it, it's easier to get lost. It's like, okay, here's an eye. I'm going to move over to the other eye, move down to the nose. But if I lift, I lose track of that like connection between the brain and the hand. Maybe you'll find that the other one's interesting. So just to recap, there'll be 3 of these. That's kind of the overall gist of it. So at this point, you can pause this video and do those exercises. And once you come back, restart the video and I'm going to show you what's next. So go ahead and pause that. So for those of you that are back now, ready to go, the next thing we're going to do is just set up a super simple still life. Still life is just an arrangement of objects, nothing fancy. You know, it can be fancy, you can have like big elaborate bowls of fruit. But for the purpose of today, I want you to set up the most simplified still life you can find. So I'll show you what I've got over here. Let's see if you can see it. I've just got a box, piece of foam, and a roll of cardboard, or sorry, a roll of paper towels. So super simple. You don't want anything too elaborate. So start with just like boxes, or cylinders, or whatever is the most simple object. I wouldn't choose like some statue or bouquet of flowers yet. Just like blocky, simple. The first week that we're starting this like kind of foundational stuff after experimenting with materials when we meet in class generally, what I'll do is just set up a still life that has, you know, pedestals and really simple kind of like rectangular, a couple cylindrical objects on it. The more neutral they are, the easier it's going to be as far as color and less print. I know one of those boxes had text all over it, so don't worry about that. But the other thing I want you to do, so you choose at least 3 objects, between 3 and 5 tops of various sizes. So make sure they're not all the same size, like some are taller, some are smaller. You can add some variety in there. And then I want you to arrange them on the table next to you, or even better yet, like you set up a table out in front of you, a few feet out in front of you, so you're not right on top of it. And like I said, here, I've just got this arrangement. And one thing that's going to be important for your arrangement is making sure that everything's touching. So you wouldn't want, as far as whatever direction you're looking at it, there's no empty spaces. So I wouldn't want this to be out here, because then these 2 objects aren't touching this. But if this was here, then then all the objects, we can think of them as just like one big object rather than multiple. So I'm going to adjust this a little bit so I can have a better perspective on it. And what we're going to do for our next exercise, and I'll show you an example, you can watch me draw. And I'm going to just change this arrangement so I can see it, is we're going to do a blind, I forgot to mention, I mean, with these blind continuous drawings from previously, you can just do all of them on the same paper, like draw right over the top of the previous one, whatever. It's just newsprint. But for this one, you know, maybe I'll flip to a new piece of paper, and I'm going to grab this charcoal, and I'm going to do a blind continuous contour drawing where I'm not looking, but I'm choosing somewhere to start on my still life and following it around the edges. So I'm only doing the edges. Once again, I'll show you from my perspective. I'm looking at this setup here, and I'm not worried about what's on the inside. I'm just the very outline of what I can see, just going around that outside. For the purposes of this, I'm just going to think of all of this as one object, not three separate objects. So you'll see what I'm going to do. Keep in mind, I'm not looking down, I'm just drawing. So I'm going to choose a place to start. These are going to be, the first one will be a 1-minute drawing, and hold my material like so, and I'm just going to start slowly, imagining I'm running my finger around that edge. So I got pretty close. So the idea, I'll lift this up and show you. So in an ideal world, if I was actually, you know, doing this a little better, these would actually met. And once again, I'm not looking at it at all. I'm just keeping my material down and I'm following that around. So in an ideal world, the better you get at it, the closer you might be. As you're starting right now, you might have this like huge gap between where you started and where you're ending. Remember, we're just following that outline of it. So you're thinking of it like this is like a silhouette of that still life that I set up for myself. So I'm going to do this a few times, or you're going to be doing this a few times. Start with a 1-minute sketch, and then the next time you start somewhere else and work your way around the other direction. So if you start clockwise, then maybe the next time you go counterclockwise. So that'll be the first part of this assignment. The next part is you can actually look at it. So it's still going to be continuous, but it's not blind. So I'll show you what this would look like if I'm actually looking at this. So, you know, if I'm able to actually look, I'll flip pages again to keep this clean. Sorry. So if I'm looking at my paper, so it's still continuous. I'm trying to keep that material down. So then I've got this silhouette that's a little bit better than my previous one. So spend some time, like take at least a minute or two to really try to be accurate with it. And then what we're going to do is try to use this actual drawing to go in and see how accurate you were. You know, find the edges of the object. So I'm actually going to draw this line in here. Once again, this is all written up for you in your assignments. So I'm just going to go through this, kind of see how accurate I've been. You'll know if you're really far off, if like these things aren't connecting where you want them to. So once again, we're just doing line. I'm not doing any kind of shadows or shading or anything. You can make some little adjustments if you need to. So then, you know, it becomes more of a real life thing. So like if I did a box, for instance, and the outside of the box looks like this, I would know it was wrong. If this was a straight vertical line from corner to corner and I went straight down and realized, oh, that doesn't meet, then I know where I was not accurate. So I can just make some adjustments, just line each. So that's the basic gist of the first part of that. You can pause there, do this or I guess that would be the second part of our exercises for today. You can do that. And then what it's going to ask you to do is do a series of contour line drawings. You can rearrange your still life if you get bored of drawing it, or you can, you know, set up a whole different one, or if you want to, draw the same thing a number of times, but you're going to work your way up to longer and longer drawings. And what I'd like you to do is to really consider variety of line. You know, if you put a boulder, like if you can see this down here, if this line here up front, what happens if this one's like a darker, bolder line coming off of the front corner here? How does that change the drawing? You can see right now, it starts pushing space a little bit more. Things start coming forward a bit more. And it just having that small bit of variety changes this drawing exponentially. So I'm going to show you really quick. Well, before I show you, you're going to just follow the assignment outline, but you're going to do a series of 10-minute contour drawings and work your way up to one final 30-minute contour drawing. Remember, these are lines only. You can do something if you want to and start adding lines to show volume. Use cross contour, which means you're just doing lines that aren't really there, but they show the form of an object. So like maybe with this, you know, you can bring lines across. I'll show you some examples of what that means, and we'll talk more about cross contour next week. But I want you, for the 30-minute drawings, remember, I'm going to be looking at this, and today's work is worth 50 points. So, you know, if there's shading in there or there's no line variety for your project, you're going to lose major points on it. But for today's exercises, you might not be following the guidelines as well, so you might not get your full 50 points. Really look at that. Any questions, ask. So I'm going to share my screen one more time and just show you. So like, for instance, right here, I just Googled contour line drawing, and I'm going to pull up some of these and talk to you about why I think they're effective and what makes them nice. So, you know, I was just talking to you about cross contour, and this is an example of that here, where, you know, you've got the banana, and then we've got this outline like we've been dealing with so far, and we're showing these edges. But then you've got these imaginary lines, almost like a topographic map, that come across the surface, and they start to show that kind of like topography of that surface and how it moves in space and the volume of it. It's like, see that in the hand, we see that here. A couple examples that I think are good. I mean, this looks like what we just did, this blind contour. So, you know, it's a common exercise, and they're always hilarious. So don't beat yourself up when your drawing doesn't look great. Let's see if I can find this. I always think this is a good example. I've seen this one here before, of just variety of line. So, you know, certain darker, bold lines kind of bring out certain edges and differentiate the object from just being all lost together. But then, you know, this artist has even used these kind of really thin, almost fainter lines here, and it gives that sense of material to the hammer. So we get this, almost like reflection in it. Or down here, maybe this, you can start to focus more on the wood grain. Simple variety. There was one other one that used to be on here of bananas that I always thought was great. Let's see if I can find it. Let me see real quick. This one here. So super simple drawing of a banana, but there's so much information there, right? Or bananas, a bundle of bananas or whatever they call them. So this artist has chosen to use bigger, bolder lines to differentiate each banana from the other. But then we all know that a banana is not perfectly round, right? They have these it's almost like a hexagonal kind of flat surfaces on it. So using these thinner lines, we start to get more volume on the inside. And if all the lines were just as dark as these outside external lines, then all that info would be lost. It would just be a big mess of lines. So having that variety is key here. But they can also show us more information with line, these little specks and marks, or maybe the banana's bruised or starting to ripen or even over ripen. So it starts to show us a lot more information. So simple but effective, and we know exactly what we're looking at. So pretty straightforward. Once again, as always, it's all laid out in that assignments section where you found this video. So follow the instructions, time yourself. You're going to be submitting pictures of everything. So, I don't need perfect photos of everything, but you could lay it all out on a table, take a couple pics, and upload them here, and it'll count for your participation in this assignment today. Next class, like I said, if you don't have your materials yet, you can still do this with paper, basic computer paper and pencils. So whatever you got around the house, hopefully your materials are on their way. But next class, we're going to get more into setting up a slightly more complex still life and actually using measuring tools to work on our accuracy. So for now, a little less focus on accuracy and more just focusing on using line to show as much information as you can. Variety of line, following the exercises, outlines, and kind of just taking it from there. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple. Next week, I'm going to have a more elaborate demo for you. And it probably won't be for me, because the tricky part is, if I'm showing you my drawing from this angle, not the best angle. A lot of people have, if I had a camera overhead that could shoot down and show you exactly, but it's kind of a bigger setup. So I've been researching different existing demos online. I found a really great one for measurement and proportion, a couple of them. They're a little bit longer, but basically your assignment for the rest of the week will just be to, after today's class on Thursday, you'll watch a video and then do some longer still life drawings where you're actually really kind of measuring things out. We're going to talk a little bit about gesture as well. Once again, apologize we couldn't set up that Zoom meeting on Thursday. We had a major disaster at the house and I was dealing with plumbers all morning, but glad I was here and it's all worked out. So should be good to go. We'll find another time to do that, but just know that I'm always available. So if you need to meet and chat, just find me, shoot me an email, and we'll set up a Zoom time. We can do face-to-face. If you're struggling with your drawing process, you can sit down and you can show me. Generally speaking, I'll be mostly available to do that on Tuesdays and Thursdays between 1 o'clock and 3 p.m., but I know that everybody has different schedules going on. Some people are working all day. So, just email me and we can work out the details. Thanks. Don't hesitate to reach out with questions, and I'll talk to you guys soon.